Every country has a unique regulatory system to make laws, regulations, rules, and a set of procedures for reviewing them. Increasingly, countries are introducing regulatory management policies and strengthening their institutions to make their regulatory systems more effective. In this module, we'll go over regulations, rationale for regulating, regulatory management systems, its key elements, and success factors.
Before we take a look at this, we first need to have a common understanding of the definition of regulations. Basically, regulations are a set of instruments implemented by the government body through the force of law to achieve social, economic, and environmental policy objectives. Or simply put, regulations are crucial in shaping the welfare of societies and economies as they support the markets, protect the public interest, and facilitate the delivery of goods and services.
Now that we have a shared definition of regulation, we also need to know why there is a need to regulate, or why does government need to intervene.
The market ideally should regulate and correct its own efficiencies, meaning it should be left alone by the state and allowed to function by itself. However, in the absence of this ideal situation, the government must step in to correct the inefficiencies. Government can correct these inefficiencies and can level the playing field in the market through regulation. Government intervention can take in the form of information and education, rewards and incentives, co-regulation, and regulation. The use of these methods vary and are dependent on the scope and context of the problem.
That's correct. But with many government agencies regulating different sectors, stakeholders may be bombarded with regulations and policies that are inefficient, inconsistent, and redundant. In order to ensure effective regulation and policy making among the entire bureaucracy, the regulatory management system serves as the overall ecosystem in developing, implementing, and reviewing regulations to ensure the coherence and quality of the policy-making process.
RMS serves as a guide to assess countries' regulatory management practices. This will help analyze regulatory governance performance and diagnose success factors and priority areas for further reform. RMS will contribute to a better understanding of good regulatory governance and the links between regulatory policies and its outcomes such as economic performance. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development suggests that an RMS has four main components. First, regulatory quality tools such as the conduct of regulatory impact assessment or RIA, administrative simplification, evaluation. Second, regulatory processes such as consultations, accessibility of regulations. Third, regulatory institutions which include an oversight body and coordination for international, national, or local coherence. And lastly, regulatory policies such as good practice regulatory principles.
As mentioned, one of the key factors in the implementation of RMS is the conduct of regulatory impact assessment, which is an evidence-based process to ensure that the government is asking the right questions in a structured format to support a wider and more transparent policy debate supported by public consultation methods. It also systematically and consistently examines potential impacts arising from government action or non-action and is consulting or communicating information to decision makers and stakeholders.
Now, in order to successfully implement a RIA, these factors should be considered. First, strong high-level political support. RIA should be supported with clear policies, training programs, guidance, and quality control mechanisms for data collection and use. To be able to do this, involvement of the top management will be crucial for the agency to integrate this in the early process of developing policies. Second, incorporation in regulatory policy. The success of RIA is assessed incrementally based on our own practice, as it does not end by just benchmarking from the best practices. And lastly, establishment of a central oversight body with responsibility for promoting the use of RIA. A formal RMS should have a central oversight and coordinative body that will review proposed and existing regulations. With the implementation of RA 11032, the Anti-Red Tape Authority serves as the regulatory oversight body in the Philippines tasked with overseeing and recommending policies, processes, and systems to improve regulatory management.
As a review, Government intervention is essential to correct market inefficiencies and protect public interests. This may take in the form of information and education, taxes and incentives, co-regulation, or strict regulatory approaches. The RMS shall serve as the overall framework and ecosystem that shall guide and ensure that our regulations are coherent, consistent, and are of good quality. One of the key elements in RMS is the conduct of RIA, which in order for it to be properly implemented needs strong high-level political support, incorporation into your regulatory policy, and the establishment of a central oversight body. In the coming modules, you'll zero in on the experiences of other countries on how they institutionalize RMS and RIA and learn about the different stages of its development.